The Rothschild family is one of the wealthiest and most powerful dynasties in history. For the record, they're known to control the British Empire by revolutionizing it to become what we all know today. Across 5 cities, London, Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, and Naples, the Rothschilds established an unprecedented banking network. This network allowed them to influence not only the British Empire, but also the politics and economies of Europe, while establishing the modern bond market. Their control over international banking allowed them to finance wars, fund major infrastructure projects, and even rescue governments on the brink of collapse. The control was so massive, they were able to manipulate markets, governments, and entire economies from behind the scenes. Alas, they understood the pulse of European economies and, at the most critical moment, would make a move that would secure their legacy, subduing Napoleon's antics. This is the untold story of how the power of money in the hands of the Rothschilds surpassed even Napoleon's grand ambitions. In the late 18th century, a family in Frankfurt, Germany would create one of the greatest financial empires the world had ever seen. The Rothschilds family, led by their patriarch Mayer Amschel Rothschild, had quite a start to his unbelievable journey. Born in 1744, Mayer grew up in the cramped and segregated Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt, Germany. At the time, Jews in Europe faced severe restrictions. They were often forbidden from owning land, limited in the types of work they could do, and subject to discrimination. Life in the ghetto was difficult. Crowded streets, poverty, and little opportunity for social mobility were the realities Mayer faced from a young age. When Christians needed loans, they often turned to Jewish lenders. It seemed like a practical arrangement. The Christian borrower got the money he needed, and the Jewish lender earned a living. But it wasn't so simple. This setup put Jewish lenders in the uncomfortable position of having to collect debts from their Christian neighbors, something that never endeared them to the community. Over time, Jews developed a reputation for being greedy and obsessed with money, an unfair stereotype that fueled centuries of anti-Semitic prejudice. Mayer's father, Amschel Moses Rothschild, ran a small business dealing in textiles and coins, and young Mayer learned the trade by helping his father. All his life, the young man was raised to be a rabbi. His future seemed set, devoted to religious studies and spiritual leadership. However, his ambition changed when his parents passed away. Mayer was forced to abandon his studies and find a way to support himself. This led him to take an apprenticeship at a local banking house. As was common at the time, young Jewish men often turned to finance when it came to find a real job. At the banking house, he quickly learned the intricacies of banking and, in particular, developed an interest in rare coin. These coins from ancient civilizations like Rome, Persia, and the Byzantine Empire were highly sought after by Europe's elite. One of Mayer's early responsibilities was to sort through the collection of coins brought to Frankfurt's famous trade fairs, where merchants from across Europe gathered. These trade fairs gave Mayer the chance to meet and observe influential figures in the financial world. By the age of 19, he had gained considerable experience and a solid understanding of the latest financial practices, positioning him well for his future. His growing reputation caught the attention of Crown Prince Wilhelm of Hesse, one of the wealthiest noblemen in Europe. So impressed was Wilhelm that he appointed Mayer as a court factor, a title given to Jewish financiers entrusted with managing the finances of royalty. Mayer now had the chance to expand his business and, more importantly, lay the foundation for the future success of the Rothschild family. Mayer did so well in this role that he decided to open his own banking house. By this time, Mayer already had 5 sons: Amschel, Solomon, Nathan, Carl, and James. So he sent each of his 5 sons to establish branches of the Rothschild Bank in key European cities: Naples, Vienna, Paris, London, and Frankfurt. Mayer gave them 2 essential directives: prioritize doing business with royal families and have many sons to ensure the continuity of the family's financial empire. This strategy was not only about business expansion but also about risk management. By spreading their operations across different regions, the Rothschilds would not be vulnerable to the political or economic instability of any single ruler or nation. By the mid-1800s, the Rothschilds had become one of the wealthiest and most prominent families in Europe. While earning the favor of ruling houses, the Rothschild gained wealthy clients and a portion of political protection. This allowed them to subtly influence political decisions and international relations from behind the scenes, all without drawing unexpected attention. Now that the Rothschild family is popularly known, their wealth and influence inevitably placed them under the spotlight. Due to their success, the Rothschilds became targets of anti-Semitic rumors. For centuries, Europeans had viewed Jews as greedy and manipulative, and the Rothschilds' wealth and connections with Europe's political elite only intensified these stereotypes. Their success was not seen as the result of hard work or seizing limited opportunities. It had to be part of some dark, hidden agenda. And so, the myths and conspiracy theories surrounding the Rothschild family began to take course. As the Rothschilds' influence increased, so did their range of financial services. Mayer and his sons became prominent bankers, and for them, wars provided some of the greatest opportunities. The French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars from 1792 to 1815 were particularly profitable. After France's defeat by Prussia in 1871, it was the Rothschilds who provided the French government with massive loans to stabilize the country. In Britain, they lent the government £4 million in a matter of hours, allowing them to become the principal shareholder in the Suez Canal Company, transforming British trade by slashing the journey from London to India from weeks to a few days. As Napoleon Bonaparte's empire expanded across Europe, many thought his ambitions would shape the future of the continent. During the Napoleonic Wars, nations clashed, economies crumbled, and fortunes were lost. Mayer Amschel Rothschild, the family patriarch, had laid the groundwork, but it was his sons, especially Nathan Rothschild in London. While the French emperor was intent on bringing Britain to its knees through economic warfare, the Rothschilds had a different vision. They understood that the true power wasn't on the battlefield, but in the control of money. Their financial empire stretched across the continent, providing loans to warring princes, trading in essential goods like wheat, cotton, and arms, and facilitating international payments between the British Isles and Europe. Even as Napoleon tried to choke off British trade with his continental blockade, the Rothschilds had a simple yet brilliant strategy: fund both sides of the conflict. By funding both sides of the conflict, the Rothschilds ensured they would come out on top, no matter who won. In Paris, Jacob Rothschild supported Napoleon's war efforts, while in London, his brother Nathan Rothschild financed the British campaign under Lord Wellington. This dual strategy ensured that no matter the outcome of the war, the Rothschilds would profit. But as the war progressed, the Rothschilds realized that Britain's victory would serve their financial interests best. Jacob began reducing his support for the Napoleonic forces, while Nathan increased his funding for the British, providing Wellington with the resources needed to continue the fight. The Rothschild network was so efficient that Nathan knew the outcome of the decisive Battle of Waterloo, a battle that would determine the fate of Europe before anyone else in London. His couriers delivered the news of Napoleon's defeat a full day before the British government received official word. Armed with this knowledge, Nathan executed his plan. He began selling bonds in small quantities, creating the impression that Britain had lost the war, causing panic in the markets. As prices plummeted, Nathan turned around and bought up bulk amounts of bonds at a fraction of their value. When the news of Britain's victory finally reached the public, bond prices soared and Nathan Rothschild made a massive profit. By the time Napoleon was exiled, the Rothschilds had achieved what no other family could. They had created a financial empire that outlived the emperor himself. As other countries rebuilt after the Napoleonic Wars, they turned to the Rothschilds for loans and financial stability. Whether it was financing infrastructure projects, rescuing governments from the brink of collapse, or controlling the flow of gold and silver, the Rothschilds became the silent architects of Europe's economic future. Yet, for all their success, the Rothschilds' maneuvering wasn't without consequence. Napoleon had been a champion for Jewish rights, granting them equal status and overturning centuries of discrimination. For a prominent Jewish family like the Rothschild, to support his enemies was seen by many in France as a betrayal. Intellectuals began associating the Rothschilds with capitalism, internationalism, and growing economic inequality. This backlash increased as anti-Semitic rhetoric took hold, with the Rothschilds painted as the architects of everything wrong with modern finance and global influence. In the years to come, nationalist movements would seize on these sentiments, using the Rothschilds as a convenient scapegoat for their own political agendas. Mayer Rothschild's legacy lived on through his sons, who proved to be as brilliant and resourceful as their father. The family's influence only grew stronger after Mayer's generation, with Nathan Rothschild, who oversaw the London branch, standing out as the most successful. His greatest achievement came in 1835, when he secured the rights to the mercury mines in Spain. This acquisition granted the Rothschilds near global control over mercury, a critical element used in refining gold and silver. Meanwhile, Nathan's connections allowed him to secure exclusive rights to refine gold and silver for the Bank of England and the Royal Mint. Rather than indulging in luxury, Nathan reinvested this wealth wisely, expanding the family's banking empire into the global trade of oil and metals. The Rothschilds became major shareholders in companies like Rio Tinto and later Royal Dutch Shell. In the United States, the Rothschilds backed industrial titans like John D. Rockefeller. Through their holdings in the National City Bank of Cleveland, they provided crucial funding that enabled Rockefeller to expand Standard Oil, making him one of the wealthiest men in history. Jacob Schiff, another elite connected to the Rothschilds through his birth in their Frankfurt house, played a key role in advising Rockefeller on strategic moves. Schiff's guidance on securing railroad rebates gave Standard Oil a massive advantage over competitors, further entrenching its dominance in the industry. Years later, they became patrons of the arts, politics, and sciences, funding expeditions to remote corners of the globe. Their collections of rare specimens and artworks enrich libraries, galleries, and museums around the world, many of which still stand today. However, wars, shifting political concepts, and internal family rivalries brought down their power over the course of a century. The first sign of trouble emerged in 1863 when the Naples branch of the Rothschild Bank closed its doors. Italian unification and the rise of nationalist forces under Giuseppe Garibaldi led to the capture of Naples in 1860. Just 3 years later, they were forced to shut down operations. The fall of the Vienna branch was even more tragic. With the rise of the Nazis in 1938, the Rothschilds in Vienna faced persecution. Many family members were forced to flee, while others, like Louis Nathaniel de Rothschild, were imprisoned and only released after paying a massive ransom. All of their properties, homes, businesses, and priceless art collections were seized. Remarkably, the Paris Bank survived World War II but could not withstand the political changes that followed. In 1982, under a socialist government, the French bank was nationalized, effectively ending the Rothschild presence in Parisian banking. Even though they've experienced one of the biggest falls in history, their influence is felt even till date. Today, 4 of the original 5 Rothschild banking branches have closed, leaving only the London branch standing. In 2023, the bank was able to further increase its revenues from net interest income by 58.4% to reach $87.9 million for the full year. This has accumulated to a total revenue of 2.54 billion euros. But just how will the Rothschilds shape the world in the generations to come?